Dit na 8:30 en tyd vir die jongste nuus. 'n Passasiersvliegtuig van die Suid-Afrikaanse lugdiens met 159 mense aan boord word naby Mauritius vermis. Vlug SA295 was van Taipei oor Mauritius onderweg na Suid-Afrika toe daar kort na middernag 'n noodsein ontvang is.
The death of someone close to us is one of life's most stressful and devastating events. For a child, this experience is even more painful when it's a parent and it's all over newspapers and television.
I was 8 years old when I heard the news of the Helderberg. I remember waking up early. The phone woke me up. My grandmother phoned. I remember running down the stairs and sitting, at the bottom of the stairs while my father was on the phone. And what I remember from the day is just how white his face went when he spoke to my grandmother. And then he told me that there'd been, an airplane crash, and hopefully my mom and sister were somewhere on a lifeboat. He never really told me more. I just remember seeing on the TV the names coming up of all the passengers that had gone down in the Helderberg.
Most people, even children, will experience the stages of grief, but not necessarily in the order set out, and they can go back and forth between stages for lengths of time.
Initially, I responded to the loss of my mother and sister by trying to survive from day to day. My world as I knew it had ended, and I had to detach from the pain to carry on, and my grieving was quite private. It wasn't something I felt I could share with anyone. There was kind of a silence in my home about her being gone, and adults didn't really seem to engage with me about it. And I think I only really grieved at night on my own. On some levels I remember even feeling embarrassed that I was crying.
Die jongste nuus oor die Boeing vliegramp is dat die eerste liggame van die slagoffers gevind is. Die nasionaliteit van die oorledenes wie se liggame gevind is nie bekend nie.
Few people can cope alone with the pain of bereavement. They need to talk about their loss and share their pain. However, if reactions are extreme, encourage professional help and provide the necessary support.
People always ask, what is a reasonable time to recover from loss? And people even go to the extent of saying to friends, listen man, it's time to move on. It's now been 3 months or it's been a year. And it's time for you to move on. And always well intended as well. The reality of this is there is no period of time we can link to an appropriate time, because loss is so individual. Some people may take a couple of months to get over a loved one. Some people never recover from it, and maybe take 10 years just to be able to function again. There are no hard and fast rules around it, and this I personally feel should be really respected when dealing with an individual.
There was definitely a specific turning point where I became aware that I had things I needed to deal with. As I started to mature and enter into adulthood, I became aware of how deep some of the wounds were. When I met my husband, I was 19, and the happiness and the contentment I felt with him also made me see the things that I needed to address. One of the big turning points in my life was having children, and wanting to be the best parent that I could be, and realizing that I needed to actually do some work on myself before I was able to do that. And writing this book has been hugely helpful in processing my grief for many reasons and on many levels. It's allowed me to really understand myself as a young child and how I dealt with what happened to me, and also shown me that none of the things that happened in my life were actually due to any fault of my own doing. And I think as young children we take a lot of responsibility for everything that's not right in the world. And hearing the other stories of the other survivors and the other people that went through very similar things has been helpful on so many levels, because I spent most of my childhood believing I was alone in my loss. I think the most important thing to do is to acknowledge your grief, to understand it, feel it, also to be compassionate with yourself, to understand that healing doesn't happen overnight.
The period of grieving differs from person to person, so there is not a specific time limit. Remind yourself that it takes time to heal, and that grieving is not a weakness.
The symptoms you normally experience from grief, if you are physical, it's not in your mind, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not crazy to be so grief-stricken that you can't function. That's human. But the physical symptoms sometimes make your body so tired that you can't really manage your own symptoms, and therefore you need assistance if possible. So there are a lot of support networks for grief. Use your family, use your friends, use professionals if you can. But at a certain stage you'll have to reach out and start interacting with other people. Otherwise, the grief is going to swallow you, and then you can't live.
I think one of the biggest things when a child has lost someone is that they need to see adults grieving. They need to understand that it's okay to feel sad, that it's not expected of them to carry on like nothing happened, and also just to give children the space to feel like it's okay to be upset and to be angry and to miss a parent, and to share with the children, happy stories about the parents or the loved one that they lost. Children love stories, and they love to have things to hope for and hang on to. So, silence and assuming that the child is fine because they're not showing any signs is dangerous. I think it's important to actively help a child grieve.
It's advised to be honest with children about what has happened which led to the loss and about how you feel. Encourage them to talk about their feelings as well.
I feel lighter. I feel like by really unpacking my grief and understanding it, I'm able to be far more in control of my emotions and my feelings. I also am not as concerned as I was previously about the outcome of things. I've learned to be present and enjoy the moment. If you are constantly detaching from your pain, you're also detaching from what's going on in your life presently. So the journey of grieving has helped me on so many levels. I feel joy, and I understand now that I can live alongside grief or sadness.